sports fans! In honor of the Super Bowl Smurf trailer, today we're talking about Smurf sports. If you're a Smurf fan but not a sports fan like yours truly, this might be your only reason you're tuning into the Super Bowl. Or you might watch it afterwards online. Either way, thanks for joining me for your Smurf sports fix. Despite spending most of their time either fixing the dam or building the bridge, somehow the Smurfs have enough free time to take up a variety of sports and activities. The first sport I'm going to talk about is the favorite among the Smurfs, Smurf ball. It's basically soccer and takes its name from the international football, but has no concrete rules, and the players tend to use their hands to navigate the ball or just go directly into the opposing team's goal in order to score points. Granted, the other Smurfs get kind of irritated when these things happen, but nobody says anything until afterwards, more or less implying that these aren't against the rules so much as things that are kind of in poor taste. Then those Smurfs are painted to be poor sports, so I really don't even know what to make of it. And the points that those Smurfs score do count anyway, so this type of play is definitely not discouraged. In one episode, Child Brainy tries to play ref, but Papa Smurf is like,
"If it's not in the rules, it must be all right."
I'm really unsure of what to say to that. Does it make sense? No. Does it confuse me to the point where I'm wondering if I'm the problem? Certainly. And somehow they have Smurf ball tournaments. To be honest, I don't know how a game with no concrete set of rules can have tournaments without making everyone want to tear their hair out. Or I guess since they don't have hair, this wouldn't be an issue. But in fairness, when they have tournaments, nobody seems to do any of those sketchy things. At least from my observation, there's no set number of Smurfs that are necessary to make up a Smurf ball team. I mean, in one episode, Clumsy says that 6 Smurfs are needed to have a Smurf ball team, but considering he says that in reference to Gargamel wanting 6 Smurfs to make gold and Brainy scoffing at him afterwards, perhaps that's not a valid claim. Because then, in other episodes, there are 5 Smurfs to a team, or 3 Smurfs to a team, and sometimes only one Smurf is doing anything important, and the rest of his so-called teammates are at the sidelines cheering him on. Needless to say, it just gets very complicated and very confusing. Taking a break from the sports that are more or less impossible to figure out, we got Smurfit Ball next. This is the Smurf version of basketball and is only played in one episode. I don't think this game has any real rules either, besides just throwing the ball into the basket. It doesn't seem to be a real game or anything so much as an activity. There don't seem to be any teams, and apparently kicking the ball into the basket is a valid strategy. I mean, it looks like Slouchy's playing on an opposite team, but considering there are only 3 players, I'd say they probably just take turns tending the basket. And you also dribble in the game, making it more like basketball. After that lovely break, we're back to the controversies. But now we're talking about the most controversial Smurf sport of all, golf. In case you were unaware, the Smurfs do play golf, and honestly the rules are exactly the same as regular golf, so that's not the problem here. The issue is that, despite Gargamel advertising golf as one of the amenities at Smurfy Acres in Season 3, a random Smurf decides he actually invented it in Season 7, and everyone seems to completely have forgotten that they ever played it or even seen it before. Naturally, because golf is such an exciting sport, the Smurfs become completely addicted to playing it to the point where they just neglect working on the bridge, which, despite the fact that they work on the bridge in every other episode, causes it to fall down. And then Gargamel sees their golf course they set up in the middle of the forest and booby traps it so the Smurfs get into his clutches, which the Smurfs should have known what happened when they decided to set up their golf course in the forest in the first place. But they used bouncy golf balls and hit them with pinpoint accuracy to save the day, so I guess golf was a pretty useful pastime after all. Papa Smurf is revealed to have a little putting green in his lab at the end of the episode, so maybe he knew that someday this would come in handy. Now we're on to bowling, another supposedly Smurf-created game. Technically, it doesn't have a name, but Smurfette created it using a fancy magic orb. Knocking down all the pins is still called a strike, so we can know that it's apparently the same game. It involves bowling pins, as you'd expect, a long carpet, and a pillow for the end of the lane. And of course, the fancy magic orb has a bowling ball. At this point, I'm going to switch my focus to water sports, as in sailing and windsurfing. Although some people might consider those sports, they're close enough that I'm going to include them here. First up in the category is sailing. The Smurfs have sailing races in homemade boats. Sure, nobody seems all too competitive considering they just built the boats for their own comfort and not for actual racing strategy, but they seem to be having a good time. Until Clumsy destroys their boats, that is. But considering Greedy was just cooking in his boat before they were setting sail and gave Clumsy the role of watching his baked goods, perhaps he deserved his fate. Why he decided that cooking in his boat was appropriate is a question for another day. Most of their boats are made out of vegetables, specifically squashes. According to the internet, zucchinis and pumpkins do float, so I suppose those are reasonable materials for constructing boats. Next, we have windsurfing, another sport that the Smurfs only do once. Once again, it appears that the Smurfs constructed their own windsurfing boats. Either that, or Handy made all of them and decided to give only himself a little propeller to turn the tides in his favor. See what I did there? Handy's a pretty generous Smurf, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt with the former option. Unfortunately, we never see the race, so we can't be certain as to who the series contenders are. And with that, I believe we've covered every sport that the Smurfs play in the 80s series. I decided not to go into sports that they only played in their Smurf Olympics, because sports that are played for one scene aren't that interesting. Also, although Smurfs are for the most part good at running, most of their training comes from being chased by Gargamos, so I don't consider that a sport either. Let me know what you think in the comments and see you next time. Bye!